Hello everyone, welcome to Learn C. Today we're discussing C program to find maximum and minimum integer of an array. Let me introduce myself. I'm Manogna, studying first year BTech CSC in SVCW Autonomous. My register number is 597. I was guided by Dr. M. Prasad, Associate Professor, Department of CSC in SVCW, Bhimavaram. Let's look at the contents of the video. First one is problem statement, and next understanding the problem statement. Third one is algorithm to solve the problem. Fourth one is code, and fifth is output and checking the working of code. Let's look at the problem statement. We have to write a C program to find maximum and minimum integer of an array. Let's look at the problem statement more closely. For example, if we take an array of 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50, we have to find that the maximum integer is 50 and the minimum integer is 10. Next, the algorithm. We declare array size of 100 and for size of array, I for printing and accessing elements of array, maximum for maximum integer and minimum for minimum integer of the array. We read the array size from the user and print the size. And then we start for loop initializing I with 0 to n and increment by 1. We read array elements from the user and print the array elements. Assign array first element to maximum and minimum integer. And then we start the for loop again initializing with 0 to n and incrementing by 1. If maximum is less than the integer comparing with, we assign the element value to the maximum. And then we start the for loop again initializing I with 0 to n and incrementing by 1. If minimum is greater than the integer comparing with, we assign the value of the element to minimum. And lastly, we print the maximum and minimum and stop the algorithm. Let's look at the final code first. First, we include the necessary header file stdio.h and start the main function using void main. And then we declare the array with size 100 because we don't know the size of the array. I is declared to print and access the elements of the array, and n is the variable for the size of the array which is read from the user. We then declare maximum for the maximum integer and minimum for the minimum integer. We then read the size of array from the user and print it. Now the array size is stored in n, and then we read the array elements from the user and print it using for loop in that I is initialized with 0 to start from the first element up to n. In the scanf statement, we use array of I because when we run the loop for the first time, the value of I is 0. That is, the first index number value is printed. Now I is incremented by 1 and second index number value is printed. In this way, all the array elements are printed. Now we assign array's first element to the maximum and minimum variable because we have to start comparing from the first element. Then we start a for loop to check for the maximum integer. Now we apply an if condition where if maximum is less than the element we're comparing with, we assign the element value to the maximum. For example, in the array 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, when we run the loop for the first time, I is equal to 0. That is 10 less than the first element which is 0, 10 less than 10 which is not possible, so if block is not executed. Now the I value is incremented by 1 and in the condition maximum is less than the array of 1, that is 10 is less than 20 which is true, so if block is executed and 20 is assigned to the maximum. In the same way 30, 40 and 50 is assigned to the maximum and the final maximum value would be 50 for this example array. Then we end this for loop and start another for loop to check for the minimum integer. Now we apply another if condition where if minimum is greater than the element we're comparing with, we assign the element value to the minimum. When we run the loop for the first time, I is equal to 0, that is minimum is greater than the first element of the array which is 10, 10 greater than 10 which is not true, so if block is not executed. Now the I value is incremented by 1 and in the condition minimum is greater than the array's second element which is 20. Minimum is greater than 20, that is 10 greater than 20 which is not true, so if block is not executed. In the same way 30, 40, 50 elements are not assigned to the minimum because they are always greater than the 10. Now we finally print the maximum integer and the minimum integer and close the main function. Lastly, let's look at the output of our program. First, we read the size of the array from the user, which is 5, and then we read the array elements, which are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, as we saw in the example. Then the program finds the maximum integer and prints it as 50 and the minimum integer as 10. Let's look at the second output of our program. We gave the array elements in the irregular order, but it still print the maximum integer is 50 and the minimum integer is 10, which means our code is working, and that is the end of our program.